Let's go to the waiver wire. Boston and Utah with only 2 games next week. About half of the league has 4 games, so nothing too crazy for us. But keep an eye on that. We just mentioned Walker Kessler, not a great streaming option this week, but someone who I still think should be rostered in almost all fantasy leagues at this point, at least 12 teamers. My available in 50% of leagues player, Brandon Clarke of the Memphis Grizzlies, who is 60% rostered in Yahoo, 49% in ESPN. So we have Steven Adams out 3 to 5 weeks with a sprained right knee. Adams has missed the past 2 games. So Xavier Tillman started the first game, which was against the Kings. Clarke starts the next game against the Warriors. Clarke only got 13 minutes in that first game off the bench, then 32 minutes as a starter. Usually pretty rare that he sees 32 minutes. It's possible this minutes and starting fluctuation situation could be an issue. Either way, I still think over a 3 or 4 game sample, it balances out to be good fantasy production. And in Clarke's 4 starts this season, 13.5 points and 75% from the field, 9 boards, 1.8 assists. That's a rosterable player. Shannon and I were talking before the podcast about whether this Tillman versus Clarke thing is this a matchups thing? Sacramento and Golden State are obviously very different. Or is this hey, we're going to bring Clarke off the bench because we're not sure about the duration of Adams' injury? I'll let you kind of take that, Shannon.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly feel like it could be matchup-based starting lineups for Memphis. To be determined. We'll have to just keep a close eye on that. It makes sense that Tillman would start against Sacramento, and then for a smaller lineup like Golden State, you have Clarke out there. But I feel like most lineups in the NBA these days lean more towards Golden State style lineups than a traditional big. There's not a ton of teams that have that down low post presence who's the centerpiece of their offense. So if they're playing Embiid and a couple other team, against Embiid and the Sixers and some other teams, of course they'll go that route. But I think Clarke will earn a lot of starts either way. I also think that it's possible they said, okay, Adams is out this first game. We're going to go with Tillman. But once they figured out the extent of Adams' injury and knew he was going to be out for 2, 3, 4 weeks, however long it ends up being, a long-term injury situation, they said, let's plug Clarke in there. He's the better player, in my opinion. And actually, going back to that Turner, Simmons, and Halliburton trade, here's a guy that you can pick up who would be able to get blocks for you. He was 1.1 blocks per game last season in 19.5 minutes. And if he's playing close to 30 minutes per game, I mean, he has upside to get 1.5 or 2 blocks per game.
Okay. Ken, who's your player?
Yes. Well, before I get into my player, fans, if you like our videos, please hit like and subscribe below. My player, cover guy this week, the 8'9" wingspan Jonathan Isaac of your Orlando Magic, managed in 45% of Yahoo, a third of ESPN leagues. Hopefully, you stashed him on your IR spot, as we've been discussing all season. He's still on a minutes restriction right now, but he did pass the eye test in the 2 games he's played so far. Remember, 2019-20, he averaged 1.6 steals and 2.3 blocks per game, plus 12 points and 7 boards. Look, this pick is all about upside. Fantasy ballers have been burned by Isaac's bad health in the past. But look, there's a dearth of options right now on the waiver wire, and nobody out there with Isaac's upside. The Magic, Orlando's at 19 wins, 29 losses. Do the Magic make a trade to clear up our little roster space? I think they should. I'll get into that later. But I just love the upside of Jonathan Isaac. And if he gets hurt again, fine, you're back to the waiver wire. But there's no one sitting on the waiver wire with this kind of upside right now.
Right. Yeah. Isaac's upside is like a more efficient peak Josh Smith, defensive monster, can score some, can hit some threes, but he's, again, way more efficient than Josh Smith ever was. I do think it's going to take some time until Isaac is playing, over 20 minutes per game. Not 10 and 8 minutes in his first 2 games. He's sitting Friday night. They've already ruled him out. for injury management. There's going to be a lot of those types of games as well. So, if he's sitting at 2 out of every 3 or 3 out of every, or I'm sorry, 1 out of every 3 or 1 out of every 4 games, it would not be a surprise. But I totally agree, Ken. Great pickup, someone you can stash and then plug into your lineup once he starts getting 20 minutes of run.
Shannon.
All right.
Take us away.
We've talked about this guy a lot. Oddly, still very little owned. Dennis Schroder, starting point guard for the Los Angeles Lakers. He is locked in to the starting lineup for the Lakers. He is rostered in 37% of Yahoo leagues, 27% of ESPN. Over the past week, which is 4 games total, he is the 31st best fantasy player. In those 4 games, he's averaged 35 minutes per, 14.8 points, 6 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 2.5 steals. Shooting percentage, not great. This is all the more impressive. He's going through a shooting slump, and he's still the 31st ranked fantasy player over the past week, only shooting 36% from the floor, but 92% from the line. There's going to be some ups and downs. He's going to have some duds, but it is confusing to me that he's not rostered in more lineups. I mean, he's topped 40 fantasy points in 3 of the past 4 games. And the minutes are just insane. I don't think that those minutes are going to go down. So there's warts with this recommendation, but I think Schroder deserves consideration in 10-team leagues and should be owned in 12-teamers.
Always been a gaudy steals guy too. Yeah, really inconsistent. I'm curious what his scoring looks like if Davis stays healthy, but that's clearly a big if to say if Anthony Davis stays healthy. Without Davis, they desperately need his scoring.
Could help his assist that Davis is back, though.
Yeah.
Another target to throw to. Okay, my long shot this week, Delon Wright of the Washington Wizards, who I believe Shannon beat me out for in the keeper league. Yes.
Not as bad as when you beat me out for the cockroach, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah, McConnell. Get this man a max contract. My God. Yeah,
but DeLon Wright, yes.
The government doesn't want you to know that DeLon Wright ranks 50th per game in 9-cat leagues.
A defensive wizard, DeLon Wright.
Yes, so to speak. Kendrick Nunn, new Washington Wizard, had a nice game in his Wizards debut, played more than I thought he would. But Monte Morris was out for that game. I think they'll all have opportunities for minutes, but Nunn is the worst guy in that group. So I'm not worried about him taking Wright's minutes or anything. And they were playing Jordan Goodwin and stuff like that. But over the past 7 games, DeLon Wright, 8.5 points on 50% from the field, 4.7 dimes, 3.9 boards. Most importantly, 2.3 steals, 1.3 threes. And if you're a 9-cat, 0.9 turnovers. Seeing minutes in the low 20s, I don't expect him to suddenly be seeing minutes in the high 20s or the low 30s unless, Monte Morris and Kendrick Nunn get hurt or something like that. But he's just proving to be like he must be rostered now in pretty much every league just because of the steals production. Even in points leagues, it's enough at this point. So don't let the low minutes fool you. He's got to be rostered.
Yeah, I would value him comparable value to Alex Caruso. So if you are desperate for steals in 12 or 14 teamers, I think Wright is worth a look.
I digress. Let's go to your long shot of the week.
I'm going with Precious Achiuwa of the Toronto Raptors, managed in 35% of Yahoo leagues, but only 7% of ESPN. It's like Toronto just remembered they have this 23-year-old asset in Achiuwa. They're letting young Christian Coloco get a run in the G League, which I think is smart and something they should have done a month ago. Toronto has 4 games this week. In the last 7 games, Achiuwa has 13 points, 7 boards, 1.4 stocks, 0.7 threes while shooting 53% from the field. Not a very flashy pick, but if you need big man stats this week, I think they're finally giving Achiuwa a run in Toronto, which is frankly a team that needs to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, Precious, he had a nice little stretch of 2 spot starts before moving back to the bench in the most recent game on Wednesday night against Sacramento. But
Still
but
had
even
19 points off the bench in that
exactly
game. Yeah.
19-5 with 28 minutes off the bench. So he's the type of player who can put up a decent stat line, even if he's only seeing the 25 to 28 minutes per. So I think that's a good suggestion, Ken. My long shot of the week. This is a very long shot, speculative long shot. Drew Eubanks, big man for the Portland Trail Blazers. Nurkic left Thursday night's game due to injury, and Eubanks was the guy who stepped up. And we saw this last season when Nurkic was down. Eubanks had a stretch towards the end of the season where he started 22 consecutive games for Portland. And over that 22-game stretch, he averaged 30 minutes per, 14.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 1.3 stocks. And it doesn't really hit threes. He has upside to get more blocks. He's blocking more shots this season. He's at 1.2 and 19 minutes per. So if that is a legit improvement, there's some block upside here as well. But Eubanks, if Nurkic is out long term or misses even just the next week, he's going to be a streaming option. We'll have to see what happens. We don't have any additional. We don't have any details on Nurkic's injury yet. We just know that he left last night's game with a calf injury and did not return. So keep an eye on that.
Even with Nurkic around, last 5 games, 7 points, 7 boards, 2.4 blocks, while shooting 70% from the field from Eubanks.
His blocks production fluctuates, but I think it might just be a coaching thing because he's plenty athletic to get up there and block shots. He's dunked on some people this year. So yeah, that's a good speculative ad.
Would you say he has sneaky athleticism?
Yeah, it's a little sneaky.
Nod to Chris Liss. Yes.
Yeah, it's like you're watching Christian Brown in Denver, and you're like, whoa. It's a little bit like that. Okay, Ken, who is your dull suggestion?
Oh, this is a really dull one. Dorian Finney-Smith of the Dallas Mavericks, managed in 27% of Yahoo leagues, only 9% of ESPN. DFS in his last 5 games, which are all starts, by the way, over 11 points, over 6 boards, over 2 assists, 1 stock, and 2 3-pointers per game. Dallas is missing Christian Wood for another week. Kleber's out for the season. The depth on this squad is terrible. They were praying for DFS to return, which tells you how bad their depth is. Look, Finney-Smith is woefully boring. That's why he's a dull suggestion of the week, but he can get you top 100 value on a consistent yet dull basis.
Yeah, just one of those guys who, if you're in like a 16-team league, you're like, I can't drop this guy.
Right.
He's like trapped on your roster.
Try RotoWire free. Go to rotowire.com/try and unlock the paywall by putting in your email.